Without further delay, I'll introduce Harry Nair, who is the Vice President Lodging for Expedia for the area, the European, Mediterranean, and what is this?
Africa.
EMEA, and Africa.
That's right.
Harry is coming from Mumbai originally. I've asked him to say a few words about himself professionally, but he has assured me that he can dance Indian dance, just in case you are not entertained enough. Harry, the floor is yours.
Thanks so very much. May I'll try my hand at this. Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. It's certainly a real honor and privilege. And when I knew that he was going to announce of my Indian dance abilities, I thought I will just go back and practice a bit. And I can tell you that with a few cups of coffee, I'm ready. I'm ready for it. It's my first time in Greece. I've been spending the last 36 hours in this wonderful town, and I can tell you that as I was walking through the streets of this wonderful destination, it reminded me a lot of Mumbai and Delhi. I do not know how many of you have been there, but I already feel that I'm home. So I wanted to spend the next couple of minutes just walking you through, the e-distribution world. I'll sprinkle a little bit viewed through the lens of Expedia. I'm not going to speak a whole lot about Expedia, but I think when you talk about e-distribution, I think I might make a lot more sense. Having spent 8.5 years with Expedia, it might make a lot more sense for me to be able to relate some of that to you. Let's see, I'm going to try my hand at this. All right, so very quickly from a distribution standpoint, very quickly, an overview of the Expedia side of the business, what this means for you, specifically for your hotels and for this destination, and a little bit of history about what distribution means today, and as Professor said, what does it mean for us a couple of years from now, and what are going to be the important aspects. Back in the 1950s, when the internet penetration was almost zero, it is hard to imagine that when you went to a website 15 years ago and you typed for Expedia.com, it would say page cannot be displayed because it couldn't be displayed. From the Expedia standpoint, we obviously were not around, and we used to rely on the old travel agent DOS kind of a system. And this is the first site that we came up with, 1996, very archaic looking, if you think about it. But in those days, it was revolutionary, where the internet penetration was less than 1%. And we booked a little less than 250,000 room nights globally, but it gives you a sense of distribution back then, about 16 years ago, and at what it looks like today, where we try to engage our audience in a pretty rich, deep conversation and a dialogue, where what is interesting for us is, unlike many of you who actually run hotels, we don't have a product that we can display and showcase on our website. When customers walk through my store, I don't have the ability to show them a room or a restaurant or a banquet facility and feel the fabric and the napkins. And the only amount of time that we have for a customer who comes to Expedia and the patience level they have for a page to get refreshed is 8 seconds. Now think about it. When you're not doing anything at all, 8 seconds is a long time. And that's the only time. How much time do you give Google to come up with your search results? Not a whole lot of time. So we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we be able to showcase the richness and engage the customers in an experience that is unforgettable, but at the same time, we don't have the ability to show them how to touch and feel things. So internet penetration, a little less than 30%. It's pretty remarkable. We can't think about living in a non-network world, but less than 2/3 of the globe do not have access to internet, which is pretty remarkable, and a ton of room nights globally. So not a whole lot, but I'll come to this in a bit, but a lot of websites around the world. I think more importantly, what is important is for all of us to remember is we want to be able to speak to the customers in a language that they understand. And I think in a lot of our worlds, you will understand the importance of localization and being able to showcase your products in a manner that kind of relates and makes sense to them. And we speak to multiple aspects of the demand curve, and I think this is, so you can see that we are large aggregators of travel. One of the advantages that we have is by virtue of being large aggregators of travel, not just in the lodging space, but also in the airline space, we are able to see trends in a marketplace a lot further out than sometimes a property can see at its own level. And when you speak about the distribution curve, if you will, one of the ways we thought of growing the business is about being able to speak to the entire distribution curve and the kinds of customers and the price points that they can relate to. So you can look at luxury and premium, the corporate and the business segment, packages, opaque, what have you, and we've built our brands speaking to each one of those segments, where we have, on the luxury side, we have the Classic Vacations, Agencia being a corporate customer, Expedia and Hotels.com. Expedia being positioned more as, if you want to buy multiple components on a trip, you think of Expedia. You only want to book a hotel room, you think of Hotels.com. And then, of course, Hotwire being the opaque side of the business, and Sneakaway is kind of a private sale website where they speak to only a certain set of consumers. So you can see that by virtue of speaking to the entire distribution curve, that's the way we've built our brand. Our evolution, and I don't want to speak about which website we came up across as one, but I think from a distribution standpoint, I wanted to make a point out here, because what we are not doing is we're not running a bookstore. If you think about worldwide bookstores like Barnes & Nobles, or you think about, I think that's a Greek one, I'm going to try this out, Eleftherodorakis, right? Is that the, probably I'll break into an Indian dance very quickly since I've not said it right. But when you think about bookstores, and you have a Barnes & Noble bookstore out here in Athens, and they go and decide to open up a bookstore in Munich, in Germany, it doesn't necessarily add value to the people or to the readers who go to the bookstore here. It does add a lot of value to the German guys in Munich because they have a new bookstore, but not necessarily here in Athens. But when we open up a new website in Sweden, when we open up a new site in China, what happens is we are now able to bring in and added in a new funnel of demand into this destination that this destination did not have access to before. So that's the difference between, I just wanted to use an analogy about a bookstore versus an online travel company when we open up a site. So Hotels.com in a lot of destinations, Expedia in a lot of destinations. And I think one of the ways we've thought about building a business is through innovation. It's not just about filling heads and beds. You want to do that in a way that kind of makes sense to the industry, but at the same time continue to innovate. So the ability to package multiple travel components at the same time, which is in our industry called the package side of the business, was, we feel pretty good about the fact that it first started off in our worlds. Coming up with the affiliate network. You have a lot of customers who go to an airline site and buy an airline ticket. But the customer does not want to get off the site, and they want to be able to buy hotel rooms by staying on the same website. You have a lot of customers who come to your site and buy a hotel room, but they want to be able to buy an airline ticket from your site and not leave your site, so that people don't have to walk around with multiple itineraries and multiple confirmation numbers. Coming up with the affiliate site so that we are able to cross-collaborate between travel components. Feel pretty good about that. Loyalty programs. 83 million room nights is what we've been pacing at. A lot of room nights, and we have a lot of customers who keep coming to our site. So the idea is, how are we able to come up with a program that is deep, rich, and engaging, but at the same time very, very simplistic, with not a whole lot of criteria that the customer needs to pass through. So the welcome rewards program through the Hotels.com site, VIP access through the Expedia site, kind of pretty revolutionary. Try to keep it simple. Has won a lot of awards already, but that's one of our ways in which we continue to invest in our distribution strategies. And the affiliate program for the travel agents, where we encourage them to make their bookings on Expedia, and of course there is a revenue sharing piece for them. What does it mean? What does all of that mean? Especially for this region, is our business has been actually growing at a pretty robust pace for this region. I mean, if you take a look at the businesses that we get from Asia and Europe and the Americas, those are some pretty significant numbers. And these are not numbers that this region overall has been experiencing over the last 12 to 18 months, which clearly means that we are actually bringing in a lot of incremental demand and certainly showcasing the Mediterranean and Greece. On the hotel side, same story on the air side of the business. I don't want to make a point here, though, from a distribution standpoint. Something for us to remember is, well, airlines have been really disciplined about being able to maintain, or in some cases remove capacity. They've been very disciplined about that so that they're able to maintain their rates. Right? One of the things that worries me for the lodging community, and this includes myself, is in the lodging business, we don't think a lot about air. We don't think a lot about what would it mean if an airline actually removes capacity from this destination? What would it mean if an airline increases its ATPs, or average ticket price, by 10%? Most customers actually think about buying an airline seat first, and whatever money is remaining is what they spend on lodging. Typically. You don't say, oh, there's a 69 euro rate in Mexico, let me buy that first, and then think about how I'm going to get there. It's usually the other way around, usually. So anything that happens on the air side of the business has a direct impact on the lodging side, something for us to understand from a distribution standpoint, and I think that we don't do much or enough of that.